I'm Dr. Anna Bennett, a 42-year-old general practitioner working in the heart of a small, tight-knit community. My life, on the surface, seems straightforward, but like everyone, I have my share of complexities. I'm divorced, childless, a situation that weighed heavily on my marriage. Yet, Michael, my ex-husband, and I have managed to maintain a surprisingly strong friendship post-divorce. He's a lawyer, sharp-minded, and always a source of sound advice. Our split was amicable, largely due to our mutual understanding and respect, especially regarding my inability to bear children. Then there's my younger sister, Lisa. Her life's journey has been tumultuous, especially in the realm of personal relationships. She's a single mother to Danny, a bright-eyed 13-year-old who is the epitome of innocence and curiosity. Recently, Lisa married John, a man of rigid principles, a former Marine. He's the kind of man who casts a large shadow, both literally and figuratively. One sunny afternoon, I found myself sitting across from Michael at our favorite local cafe. It was our monthly ritual, a way to stay connected despite our divorce status. "Anna, you look a bit off today. Is everything all right?" Michael's voice was laced with concern, his eyes searching mine for clues. I let out a weary sigh, my fingers tracing the rim of my coffee cup. "It's Lisa and John. Something's not right there. I'm worried about how it's affecting Danny." Michael leaned forward, his expression turning serious. "John's a tough guy, an ex-Marine, right? Has he been causing problems?" "It's not just John. It's Lisa, too. She's changed since marrying him. She's become submissive, almost like she's lost her sense of self. And Danny, he's caught in the middle of it all." Michael nodded slowly. "Have you tried talking to Lisa about your concerns?" The memory of my last attempt made me grimace. I did. It ended in a shouting match. She accused me of being jealous, of not understanding what it's like to have a real family because I don't have children of my own. The hurt from that conversation still stung. Michael reached across the table, his touch reassuring. "Anna, you're one of the most compassionate and caring people I know. Don't let Lisa's words get to you. She's probably just defensive." I gave a weak smile. "Thanks, Michael. I just wish I could do something for Danny. He's become so withdrawn lately." "Why don't you spend some time with him? Maybe he'll open up to you," Michael suggested. "That's a good idea. I'll try to talk to him this weekend." We spent a few more minutes chatting, mostly about Michael's latest cases and some of my challenging patients at the clinic. As we parted ways, my mind was already planning a visit to Lisa's place, hoping to find a way to reconnect with Danny. The drive to the clinic was a blur, my thoughts consumed with concern for my nephew. I knew all too well how family dynamics could impact a child, especially in a household where one parent's personality overshadowed the other's. I had seen it in my practice, the silent cries for help hidden behind the facades of normal family life. After my coffee with Michael, I decided it was time to have a serious talk with Lisa about her new life with John. It was a Saturday, and I figured a visit might be overdue. So, I drove to Lisa's house, rehearsing the conversation in my head. When I arrived, Lisa opened the door, a forced smile on her face. "Anna, what a surprise! Come in." The living room was tidy, almost too perfect. Danny was sitting on the couch, his eyes glued to a video game. "Hey, Danny," I greeted him. He just nodded without looking up. Lisa led me to the kitchen. "Coffee?" she offered. "Sure, thanks," I replied, sitting down at the kitchen table. The air was tense, and I knew this wasn't going to be easy. I took a deep breath. "Lisa, we need to talk. About John and how things are at home." Lisa stiffened, her back straightening. "What about John? He's a good husband." "It's just, you seem different, like you're not yourself. And Danny, he seems unhappy." Lisa's eyes flashed with anger. "You think you know better? Just because you're a doctor? You're not a mother, Anna. You don't understand." Her words stung, but I pressed on. "I'm worried about you, Lisa, and Danny. John seems to be, well, he's very controlling." "And what's wrong with that? He's a man. He knows how to run a household. You wouldn't understand, living alone, no husband, no kids." I felt my patience wearing thin. "Lisa, being alone doesn't mean I don't understand what a healthy relationship looks like. You're my sister. I care about you." Lisa slammed her coffee cup on the table. "You think you're better than me? Because you're a doctor? Because you have your fancy friends and your ex-husband who's still in love with you? Lisa, that's not fair. I'm just concerned." "You have no right to be concerned." Lisa stood up, her voice rising. "You should leave. I don't want your concern here." I stood up, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "Fine, Lisa. I'll go. But remember, I'm here if you need me, for you and Danny." I walked out, hearing Lisa's frustrated sigh behind me. In the car, I took a moment to calm down. The conversation hadn't gone as I hoped, but it was clear now that things were worse than I thought. Lisa was in denial, and Danny was stuck in the middle of it all. I needed to figure out a way to help them, but for now, all I could do was hope Lisa would come around. As I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling of helplessness. My sister, once so vibrant and independent, was now a shadow of her former self. And Danny, a kid who used to be full of laughter and energy, now seemed lost and withdrawn. I knew I had to keep an eye on them somehow. Despite Lisa's harsh words and the closed door between us, I couldn't just sit back and do nothing, especially when it came to Danny. I decided to reach out to him directly, but discreetly, to avoid causing more friction with Lisa. A few weeks after the confrontation with Lisa, I sent a text to Danny. "Hey Danny, it's Aunt Anna, just checking in. How are you?" I waited anxiously for a response, half expecting him not to reply, but then my phone buzzed. "Hi Aunt Anna, I'm okay, I guess." Encouraged, I typed quickly. "Are you sure? You can talk to me, about anything." There was a pause before he replied. "Can't really talk. John's rules." My heart sank. "Rules?" "Yeah, he's got a lot of rules. Mom follows them. Says it's for the best." I could feel the frustration building up inside me. "Danny, do you want to meet up? Maybe grab some ice cream? Just you and me." It took a while before he responded. "Maybe. I'll have to sneak out. Can't let Mom or John know." "Okay, let's meet at the park, near the old oak tree. Tomorrow afternoon?" "Sure, Aunt Anna." The next day, I waited at the park, feeling a mix of nerves and determination. When Danny showed up, he looked around nervously before sitting down beside me. "Aunt Anna, I can't stay long. John might find out." I nodded, keeping my voice low. "I understand. Are you okay, Danny? You can tell me if you're not." Danny fidgeted, his eyes darting around. "It's just, John's really strict. We have to do things his way. Mom says it's because he was in the military, but I don't know. It feels wrong." I reached out, putting my hand on his. "You don't have to go through this alone, Danny. I'm here for you." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and relief. "Thanks, Aunt Anna. I better go now, before they notice I'm gone." As he stood to leave, I felt a pang of worry. "Be careful, Danny, and text me anytime, okay?" He nodded and hurried off. I watched him go, my mind racing with concern. I had to do something, but what? Danny was in a tough spot, and I feared what might happen if John found out about our meeting. 3 months have passed, which were filled with work and household chores. Suddenly, I received a text from Danny that sent chills down my spine. "Aunt Anna, can we meet? Near the school, please." I replied immediately. "Of course, Danny. I'll be there as soon as I can." I found Danny waiting near his school, a place filled with childhood innocence, now a backdrop to something much more sinister. He looked different, thinner, with a haunted look in his eyes. "Danny, what's going on?" I asked, my voice filled with concern. "Aunt Anna, I'm so hungry," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Shocked, I led him to a nearby diner. "Order whatever you want, Danny." As he devoured the food, I noticed him wincing as he moved. "Danny, are you hurt?" He hesitated, then slowly rolled up his sleeves, revealing abrasions on his arms. My heart sank at the sight. "Danny, how did this happen?" He looked down, his voice trembling. "John makes me run with him at night. Says I'm too fat. He makes me carry weights. If I fall, he just drags me." I felt a surge of anger. "That's abuse, Danny. He can't do that to you." Danny's eyes filled with tears. "He says it's training, that I need to be tough, but I can't. I can't keep up. And Mom, She just lets him. And the food? I asked gently. He controls that too. Says I need to eat less. I'm so hungry all the time, Aunt Anna. I reached across the table, taking his hands in mine. Listen to me, Danny. This is not okay. You don't deserve this. I'm going to help you, I promise. He nodded, a mix of fear and hope in his eyes. Please, Aunt Anna, I don't know what to do. After the diner, I drove him back to school, my mind racing with the gravity of what he had shared. I knew I had to act, to protect Danny from further harm, but I also knew I had to tread carefully. Confronting John directly could make things worse for Danny. As I watched Danny walk back to school, a determined resolve settled within me. I would do whatever it took to ensure his safety. This was no longer just a family matter. It was a child's well-being at stake. I knew I had to take action. But I also knew that confronting John or Lisa without solid proof would be futile. I needed evidence of the abuse. I began by doing some research on how to legally gather evidence. Then, with a heavy heart and a determined mind, I set out one evening to discreetly follow John and Danny on one of their so-called training sessions. Hiding in the shadows, I watched as John and Danny started their nightly run. Danny looked exhausted before they even began. I started recording on my phone, making sure to stay hidden. As they ran, John's harsh words cut through the quiet night. "Move it, Danny. You're so slow." Danny stumbled, his breath ragged. "I'm trying, John. I'm really tired." "Tired? You're just lazy. Pick up those weights and keep going." I felt a wave of anger watching John berate my nephew. I captured everything on my phone, the evidence of John's cruel treatment stacking up with every recorded minute. After a while, Danny collapsed, unable to run any further. John's reaction was immediate and harsh. He grabbed Danny by the arm, pulling him up roughly. "Get up! You're not quitting!" Danny winced in pain, tears streaming down his face. "Please, John, I can't." I had seen enough. I stopped recording and made my way back home, my mind racing. The video was damning, but I knew I needed more than just one incident to make a solid case. Over the next few nights, I continued to gather evidence, each video more disturbing than the last. Danny's suffering was palpable, and with each passing day, my resolve to put an end to this abuse grew stronger. Once I felt I had enough evidence, I called Michael. "Michael, it's Anna. I need your help. It's about Danny." "Anna? What's wrong? Is Danny okay?" "It's complicated. Can you come over? I have something important to show you." "Of course, I'll be right there." When Michael arrived, I showed him the videos. His expression turned from concern to shock to anger. "This is terrible, Anna. We need to do something about this immediately." "I know, but we need to be careful. We can't just barge in. We need a plan." Michael nodded. "Let's think this through. We need to protect Danny and build a case against John that's indisputable." We spent the rest of the evening strategizing, determined to find the best way to save Danny from his living nightmare. Armed with the evidence Michael and I had compiled, our plan was to confront Lisa and John. But fate had other plans. One evening, while secretly observing another of John's grueling training sessions with Danny, something went terribly wrong. It was a particularly brutal session. Danny was visibly struggling, his steps faltering under the weight he was carrying. John's voice was relentless, pushing him beyond his limits. "Move faster, Danny! You're not even trying!" John shouted. Danny's voice was weak, gasping for air. I can't, John. Please." I was filming from a distance, my heart pounding. Suddenly, Danny collapsed to the ground, motionless. Panic surged through me. I ran towards them, abandoning my hiding spot. "Danny!" I shouted as I approached. John looked up, surprised and angry. "What the hell are you doing here, Anna?" Ignoring him, I knelt beside Danny, checking his pulse. He was breathing, but unconscious. "He needs a doctor, John. Now." John scoffed. "He's just acting. Get up, Danny." I glared at John. "This is serious. He's not acting. I'm calling an ambulance." As I dialed emergency services, John hovered nearby, a mix of confusion and anger on his face. "What did you do to him?" I accused, my voice shaking. I was just training him. He needs to toughen up, John defended weakly. The ambulance arrived quickly, and the paramedics took over. As they loaded Danny onto a stretcher, one of them turned to me. Are you family? Yes, I'm his aunt, I replied, my voice tight with worry. We'll take him to the hospital. You can follow us in your car. I nodded, shooting John a look of pure fury before following the ambulance to the hospital. At the hospital, I was pacing the waiting room when Michael arrived. Anna, what happened? He asked, concern etched on his face. It's Danny. He collapsed. He was pushing him too hard, I explained, struggling to keep my emotions in check. We need to talk to the doctors, and we need to report this to the authorities, Michael said firmly. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor approached us. Are you Danny's family? Yes, I'm his aunt, and this is a family friend, I said, gesturing to Michael. The doctor nodded. Danny's stable, but he's very weak. He's showing signs of exhaustion and malnutrition. It's serious. Malnutrition. The word hit me like a punch. This was far worse than I had imagined. Can we see him? I asked, desperate to be by Danny's side. Yes, but only for a few minutes. He needs rest. As Michael and I entered Danny's room, I couldn't help but feel a wave of guilt. I should have acted sooner, but now there was no turning back. We had to protect Danny, no matter what it took. After the harrowing night at the hospital, Michael and I knew it was time to confront Lisa and John directly. The next day, we went to their house, my heart heavy with a mix of anger and dread. Lisa opened the door, surprise etched on her face. Anna? Michael? What are you doing here? We need to talk, Lisa. It's about Danny, I said, my voice firm. Lisa's expression changed to one of defensiveness. What about him? Let's sit down. This is serious, Michael interjected, his lawyer demeanor taking over. We sat in the living room, an air of tension enveloping us. John came in, his face a mask of annoyance. What's this about? He asked gruffly. It's about Danny, I started. He's in the hospital because of your training. You've been pushing him too hard. He collapsed. Lisa was crying silently. John's face hardened. He's just weak. He needs to toughen up. I couldn't contain my anger. Toughen up? You've been abusing him, John. He's malnourished and exhausted. Lisa looked between us, confusion and fear in her eyes. Abusing? John, tell me this isn't true. John snorted. This is nonsense. He's my stepson. I'm teaching him discipline. Michael leaned forward. Discipline? No, John. What you're doing is abuse. We've seen it, and we have evidence. Evidence? Lisa's voice was a whisper. I pulled out my phone and showed them the videos I had taken. Lisa's face went pale as she watched. This can't be, she murmured, tears brimming in her eyes. John stood up, his face red with anger. You had no right to spy on us. I had every right when a child's safety is at stake, I shot back. Michael stood up, his presence commanding. We're not here to argue. We're here to tell you that this stops now. We're going to take legal action if necessary. Lisa looked lost, torn between her husband and her son. I didn't know. I thought John was just being strict. I reached out to her. Lisa, you need to see the truth. Danny is suffering because of John's actions. You need to choose, your husband or your son. Lisa broke down, sobbing. I don't know what to do. John was silent, his anger simmering just below the surface. Michael spoke up. You need to make a decision, Lisa, and you need to make it fast. We're not going to let this go. As we left their house, my emotions were a whirlwind of anger, sadness, and determination. I knew this was just the beginning of a difficult journey, but I was ready to do whatever it took to protect Danny. The weeks following our confrontation with Lisa and John were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and difficult decisions. Finally, the day came for a crucial meeting with Lisa, John, and a social worker from Child Services. The future of Danny, my nephew, hung in the balance. We gathered in a somber room at the Child Services office. Lisa and John sat together, a united front. The air was heavy with tension and unspoken words. Miss Carter, the social worker, initiated the meeting with a stern look. "We're here to discuss the welfare of Danny and the allegations of abuse against Mr. John Richardson." John's face hardened. "Allegations? They're nothing but lies." I couldn't contain my frustration. "Lies? Danny was in the hospital because of what you did to him." Miss Carter interjected. "Please, let's remain civil. We have substantial evidence of the abuse." Lisa, her eyes cold and distant, spoke up for the first time. "I stand by John. I don't believe these accusations. He's been nothing but good to Danny." I stared at her in disbelief. "Lisa, how can you say that? Danny is your son." John wrapped his arm around Lisa, a smug look on his face. "She knows the truth. This is just a vendetta against us." Miss Carter sighed. "Regardless of personal beliefs, the evidence is compelling. We are moving forward with terminating your parental rights due to abuse." John scoffed, but Lisa remained silent, her decision clear. Michael leaned forward. "You're making a mistake, Lisa, choosing him over your own child." Lisa's response was chilling. "My husband is my priority. Danny will have to understand." The finality in her voice hit me like a wave. I realized then that Danny had been abandoned by his own mother for her husband. After the meeting, with Lisa and John's rights terminated, I knew what I had to do. I filed for custody of Danny. There was no opposition. It was clear they had given up on him. When the custody was granted, I sat down with Danny, who had been staying with me since the hospital. "Danny, I'm going to be your guardian now. You're going to live with me," I said gently. Danny looked up, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and relief. Does she not want me?" I took his hand, choosing my words carefully. "Your mom made a choice, Danny. But I want you to know, you're not alone. I'm here for you, and I always will be." He hugged me, a quiet sob escaping him. "Thank you, Aunt Anna. I just want to feel safe." Later, we were sitting in a cafe, me, Danny, and Michael. I was looking at Danny, Michael was looking at me, and there was something more than just respect in his gaze. I looked at him and smiled, and he smiled back and took my hand. It was reassuringly. I do not know what awaits me and Michael, but I'm sure that Danny is waiting for a completely different life,